Let's get this show on the road, so to speak. Hello, everybody. This is the final episode. Oh, I say episode, part number 4 of the series we're doing as part of the Global Virtual Design Sprint to address the COVID-19 pandemic that all of us are living through currently. These lightning decision gems have basically been a activity that we've used to figure out what types of projects and challenges the participants of the Global Virtual Design Sprint should take on. So far, we've had, I think, about 3 or 4 really good candidates, and this is our final volley into figuring out what we should do or what should be, the participants should consider coming up in May. Now, the way this works is I'll be guiding everyone through a mural, and which is like a whiteboard that'll have all the different exercises we'll go through. And if you're interested in being a participant on this side, meaning that you could actually talk and interact with me and other people, feel free to raise your hand in Zoom at any time or send a message in chat, and I'll be more than happy to kind of bring you over to the other side, which is, this wonderful backdrop with me fading in and out with the microphone. So please do that. In the meantime, a couple of what would you call maintenance notes or logistics. I have terrible allergies this morning, so if you see me suddenly exiting off of my background and sneezing, that's why. I also have my 7-year-old running around who's getting up kind of late today. He might come up and want some orientation. I'm hoping that during exercises he does come, but just in case he decides to come during the time I'm talking like this, expect those interruptions. They're going to happen. So let me check really fast before we get into it. If there's anyone that raised their hand, and I'll bring them over. We got Susanna. And sometimes Zoom is a little problematic for bringing people over, so I may have to do it a couple of times. We got Mark, and looks like Thomas is also there. Let's bring this over. Now let's see if everything works out. Hey, Gia, how are you? And there's Mark. Susanna's there, so it seems to be working. Thomas is still left out in the cold. Hang on. See if this works. There we go. Hey, hi. It's always funny when you add somebody and you have the avatar that they have like in LinkedIn or whatever, and then it's like, ta-da, pandemic style.
Yeah.
Everyone's at
Took
home.
a shower.
Exactly. So it's a dressing down, but it's interesting all the same. So really quick, let's go through introductions before we begin. Mark, you're first up. Let everyone know what you're all about and what you do for a living.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Yeah, okay. So I'm Mark. I'm an innovation and agile strategist. So I'm all in the agile world. And right now, I'm actually converting all my in-class trainings and workshops to online. So I'm actually absorbing all these online meetings, webinars, and workshops that's going on right now. Having a kind of getting an online hangover with all these online meetings. So yeah, but I needed to be able to convert my in-class trainings and workshops into an online version. So
that's the first time I've ever heard the phrase "online hangover." In a way, I wonder if etiquette is going to start falling out the window when that happens. Like you're just going to be laying on the side, like, yeah, and then, like you're literally just lazy, or you forget that you're not supposed to like lean into the microphone and be like this. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out. Well, I'm glad you're here, Mark, and you've been frequenting these events a lot. So I really do appreciate that. Susanna.
thank you for the invitation.
Oh, no problem.
Hello, Robert. Happy to be here. Always trying to boost my skills. My name is Susanna Childers. I am a facilitator. I have a company called AHA, and we facilitate teams through the innovation process, design thinking process, processes, creative problem solving, and have been immersing since the last GVDS, since last summer on mural boards, and just always trying to bring my offline skills online. I've got a couple of clients that are really interested in doing more and more online work, particularly now, but it was kind of starting before. So I was bridging and doing some hybrid kind of things. And so now it's, good timing, slightly ahead of that curve. So thanks to Robert for facilitating these and helping us amp up our training.
I heard an analogy too that somebody compared this whole online rush to when one of your favorite bands, the opening act is done and you're waiting for the main band to come on. Everyone does a mad rush to the front of the stage. That's what everyone feels like this online thing is that everyone's just rushing to it, like, okay, we got to do it.
Yeah.
And then everyone's at attention. And then when it's done, they all just kind of go.
And we're like, yeah, we were here for the opening band.
That's right. Yeah.
Head of
And
the curve.
you don't know if this is a Bruce Springsteen style kind of concert where it's like 4 hours long, or if it's going to be like your average potback that goes for maybe 2 hours, but doesn't get that far. So we'll see.
We'll see. Good skills to have. Thanks for letting us play.
No problem. Thomas, you're patiently waiting while all of us have conversations. So why don't you go ahead and let me know what you're all about.
That's all right. Hi, and thanks for inviting me. So yeah, I'm Thomas. I got a background in business transformation and people change. I have a bit of background in design thinking, where I've been working a lot with clients to understand, what's the strategy, what's the process, and really good at aligning people. So I probably, just like a lot of other people, jumped on the bandwagon on design sprints because I see it as a quite useful tool. I kind of really like the idea how we get to ideas in a very short period of time, and I've done that with clients, and it seems to work quite well. I think it's a bit of an eye opener for clients when you work with them to see that how we actually bring a lot of disciplines together, and it's not just driven by leadership, but it's actually bringing people in. It was we call the SMEs in the organization. So that's what I do. So that's a bit about my background.
Cool. So how are you adjusting to online? Are you starting to get used to it? Is that kind of in between?
I think I am. I don't have my hangover yet, but there's a lot of these events going on. I think it's good because you certainly get to connect and meet people globally. So I think you're just spreading your knowledge and your network. So I think that's really good. And I think we sit in these environments, we're using this new approach for some people, and I just think it works quite well. And it's quite interesting to see what people bring to the table. So, but yeah, because being a consulting and travel as well, I'm quite used to this anyway. So as long as the technology is there, and we're not going to get bogged down by the bandwidth. So everybody seems to be on the private network these days, which can have an impact on performance.
Yeah, I think this just accelerates the inevitable around just people being online and working in this space. I mean, if you've been working as a consultant or in an agency of any capacity, excuse me, you know this. I've been doing this for quite a while, so this is natural for me, but I can totally understand the people who have never done this that are suddenly thrust into this kind of environment are feeling a little out of like an out-of-body experience for some of them. So especially if they're really used to person-to-person contact.
Yeah. True. I agree.
So, Mark, you mentioned that you were doing noise cancellation software. Are you using Crisp or are you using another type of app?
I am using Crisp, but I also have my AirPods. So my new AirPods are noise cancellation, has a noise cancellation feature, but I was just wondering if it worked or not.
Got it. No, sounds fine to me. And Gia, I've been trying to add you as a panelist. For some reason it's not adding you, but we'll keep on working on it. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll start sharing my screen on my side and we'll get this thing rolling. Let's see here. I'll make sure I select the right window. Sometimes it does not want to, it doesn't want to play nicely. So let me know on the panel side if you see something called the 4th Global Virtual Design Sprint and a bunch of panels and a bunch of colors. Do you see that on your end? Okay. What I'll do is I will go ahead and share this board anonymously with everyone, including those that are observing. So if whether you're a panelist or you're part of the observation tower or the observation group, you can participate in this exercise as well. So it's not just necessarily restricted to the people you're seeing on the screen. I'll go ahead and put that in the chat fast. And I'll go over to YouTube really quickly, and my screen may go a little gray or stop sharing because I'll have to switch out windows. And for those who are on YouTube can also do it as well. Give me a minute. Okay. So first off, what I'll do is go over the mural board that we're going to be working off of. Give some just a general sense of how the phases are going to work. For some of you who've done this before, that's going to know what to do. But again, I'll be really brief. This first part here is going to, since it's free for all today, anything related to the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic that is something that you think we should address, some sort of issue, this is the place to put it in. In fact, once you get in the mural board, you don't have to wait for me. You can just basically double click on one of these digital cards and put in something that you think we should do. But what you want to do is when you put this in, you want to put it in the form of a how might we question. So I'll put how might we in this card just for example. An example to do is like, how might we better communicate when a new testing center is available? That's one possibility. But try to phrase your thoughts or your ideas into questions in this space, and that will better help us ideate for what we're going to be doing in the next section, which is this. We're going to take the top voted how might we in this step one, and as a group, ideate really quickly on different ideas to answer the question around that, or to answer that question that we vote. After we do a ton of different ideas and directions, we'll go down here to this section for affinity diagramming and get into kind of organizing our thoughts. We'll cast things to a vote, and we'll take the top 3 from this and bring it over into step 3, where we're going to pair the how might we with the ideas and kind of bring everything together here, where we're going to start thinking of outcomes. So we have the question, the idea, but where are we going with this? What would be the ideal end state if our idea was realized? When we figure out what that is, we'll combine them all into one comprehensive kind of view of where we've been. And in this section, we'll be able to figure out individually our interest in any particular idea outcome combination we come up with, and the impact that we think it'll have. And this will help gauge whether or not something has a real appeal, or something that's kind of in the middle, or something that just doesn't really work. So that'll be that part. And then finally, we'll talk about taking things further. If you want to do anything with a GVDS, if you want to start your own project, we'll leave some time at the end of the session for discussion. And I'm sorry, I should have, this is me kind of trying to do 2 things at once. As you actually follow me, once I get the right, there you go. So this right here would be where you would put in your LinkedIn profile ahead of time. You can copy and paste your URL from LinkedIn and put that there. And you can look at the sprint brief that we're currently using to document challenges. So if you want to use that, you're more than welcome to. But that's the entire 5-step process. On the panelist side, is there anything that I missed or that's confusing about this that you want to ask a question about before we get started? And I'm checking the chat really fast because it's been pretty active.
I'm just going to tell you that you had posted the link only to the panelists. So
I'm sorry.
I just popped it in there for everybody else on
the thank you.
Zoom. So hope that's okay. I think
that's fine. My fault.
Now we have more people in.
Yeah. Well, it would have been bad if there's only 3. I'm like, well, nobody likes it. No, I'm
Nobody
kidding.
wants to play.
Yes. Yeah. So my fault. Yeah, I didn't hit the down select. So let's, without further ado, sorry. Does anyone on the panelist side have any questions before we begin?
No, I'm happy to go ahead.
Good?
No,
okay.
I'm good.
All right, let's get cracking. The first one is going to be step 1, and I'll summon everyone over to where I'm at. Go ahead and start putting in, double-clicking on any card you see here, and think of a how might we question that you would like to pose to the rest of the audience that would address COVID-19, coronavirus, pandemic, anything related to that in a way where it could evoke a lot of different and interesting ideas. So try to do it from your own perspective, something that's impacting you. You can project to a larger audience if you want, but it's totally up to you. I'll give everyone about 5 minutes for this, and we'll see what kind of ideas come up. If we exhaust the available cards, then I'll stop the timer early. But I'll give plenty of people time to. I'll give plenty of time for people to kind of figure out what they'd like to put there. One thing you can do if you are observing and not participating is if you have questions at any point during our session, you can put those in the Zoom chat, or if you're on YouTube, you can go ahead and put those into the YouTube chat and we can address those. The Q&A portion, unfortunately, for Zoom is hidden from me if I'm sharing my screen. So it's better if you populate chat with your Q&A and do it that way. I don't know why it happens like that. One other thing I'll say while it's in the back of my head, these templates are available for download. So if you want to take what you're going to experience here and work with, you're more than welcome to, get a download link for this template and use it for whatever your purposes you'd like to do internally or for yourself. Because that question has come up several times in the past. Okay, as we're wrapping up, and it looks like we're pretty much going to put in how might we questions for literally every gray card we see here. What you can do really quickly is just do a quick scan of the cards, kind of look things over. And if you see a couple of cards that you can make the argument that one should be kind of removed because it's a duplicate of the other. The easy way to do that is to basically select both suspect cards that are similar and give it a different color besides gray. So in Mural, you can select both of those. On the share, I'm showing that you select like the 1, 2 on the right and basically make them blue. And then what we can do is take a look at them. If I think something should be put to a vote by everyone here, I'll show how to do that. But this is just a quick scan. This is to get familiar with what other people have put in. And then we can kind of figure out if any of them need to be kind of reconsidered. So there's how might we plan for what's next and how might we prepare our business for after COVID-19. One's business related. The other one is just general. I think both of them can probably stay in the same space. How might we retain the connections we're starting to make, and how might we remain socially unconnected, and how might we find ways to stay connected? So I think this one here, I'm going to take it off purple just because it's similar, but I don't think it's quite there. But I do think there's an argument to be made about staying connected and remain societally connected. So the way this works is as a group, and I'm going to kind of center here a bit. What I want you to do is take your mouse that you have in Mural, and I want you to put it over the card that you think should stay. So if you think, how might we find ways to stay connected should stay, you put your mouse here. If you think, how might we remain societally connected should be remain, you put your mouse down here. And it looks like that top one's going to stay. So we're going to take this one And no offense to the person that created it, we're just going to make sure that we don't do double votes, which is what we try to avoid. Okay, we are good. Thank you very much for that. I'll just leave this blank. And I think we're set. I'm going to eliminate the blank cards that we see here so that we don't put any votes on open cards. And I'm going to take these two and make them back to gray. Someone pointed out that having a different color tends to maybe bias people when we do this upcoming vote. So we're going to try to eliminate that. Okay, so now that we have a set of different How Might We questions, we've been kind of glancing them over. It's going to be a time now to vote on your top 5. So out of all of this, I want you to put one vote on 5 different cards that you would like others to consider that you think actually we should move forward with into ideation. So everyone will have the chance to do that. You want to click on any of the gray cards here. The image won't record your particular vote, just the gray cards. So I'll summon everyone to make sure we're in the same space. I'll go ahead and start the voting session. This is for the How Might We's. 5 votes each. Let's see. So the way to vote is you basically click on a gray card that you see. You can shift click to remove a vote, and your vote is going to be anonymous. So no one's going to be able to see your mouse cursor or where you click or what you vote on. And again, try to keep your votes 1 per card. If you stack your votes, we're probably going to discount that a bit in the results. So make sure that you follow that rule. And if you see on the share, you can actually see how the votes are kind of playing out. Sometimes I like playing a little game where I tell people like there's a top 3. I'm going to see who finishes their votes first, which is no rush, but it's just kind of a fun thing to do. So right now we have a giraffe, a lobster, and a cat that are all vying for first, second, and third. Cat moves up into second place, and everyone else is kind of digesting the How Might We's, which is perfectly fine. Giraffe's going pretty fast. Let's see. Then we have a fish that's coming up and a lion. So it's anybody's game right now. Lobster, fish, cat. Yep. All sorts of animals. Fish is about to cross the finish line, and he does in first place. Second place is still up. It's a 6-way tie now for second place. It just depends on who people vote for. And then the cat and the ladybug are about to claim their prize. And then Gia comes through. And it looks like we have a quick succession of the fish and a ladybug. So our top 3 are a fish, a ladybug, and Gia, all in one space. The rest of you can take your time voting. And when we see the votes kind of slow down in the report that I see here in Mural, we'll go ahead and close the voting session and see how everything panned out. Okay, it looks like we just have a rabbit that has 3 votes left. And those 2 votes are going to decide the course of our destiny for the rest of the session. No pressure, rabbit. There you go. All right. Looks like we're all set with our votes. I'm not voting because I'm your facilitator, and I'd rather keep the votes with the participants. I'll end the voting session now. Let's see how everything vetted out. I'm going to move my, hang on. Okay. So let's see, looks like we have a top. We have how may we keep a commercial activity during lockdown period is the one that had the most votes. We had 2 close ones. How might we change our business model to anticipate corona-ish viruses, and how might we become more resilient as a result of this and be better able to handle future crises? All really good, but we definitely do have one that's stuck out by a nose. We're going to move forward with that. So the how might we're going to be considering for step 2 is, and I'll put it over here on this side, how might we keep a commercial activity during a lockdown period? Okay, so that's the question posed to the group for the rabbit ideation. Essentially what you're going to do is try to answer this question in all sorts of ways possible in a stream of consciousness. It can be practical, it can be crazy, it could be bold, it could be all sorts of things. But what you want to do is try to do something very like, I would say bold is probably the word to use. And it's the same thing as you did with the how might we. Double click on an idea on a card here to put in your idea, and we'll continue until all the cards here are exhausted. But Answer that question directly. How might we keep a commercial activity during the lockdown period? I can give an example too, where you produce a ton of content by starting your own video blog. So basically, you get your name out, people understand who you are. You could practice going into the space, because I think that direct to consumer is going to be a thing of the future. And I think this only accelerated that. So that's my view. But let me know what yours are. Again, bold, practical, crazy, whatever you'd like. Put those into the carts. As soon as all the carts are filled up, we'll go ahead and check for duplicates. I'll go ahead and I'll start the timer. I'll give this about 3 minutes this time. It doesn't take usually too long to do ideation, but in case we need any extra time, we'll do that. And again, you shouldn't need to pause to kind of think of a nice idea. It should probably come to your head fairly quickly. You don't have to worry about reading right. Just see what comes to mind. If anyone in the future from Mural is watching this, I would love if you had built in some sort of streaming opportunity in this, where you could just basically hook up Spotify or something else and be able to play music that's would stream naturally to everyone on the opposite side. That would be very, very interesting. Thanks for doing that, Amir. Amir just posted a link to people that came in for the mural itself. Yeah, I know. The performance of it seems to be a little off, though. Edward, if you use that link that Amir provided, you should be able to go into you should be able to access the mural. But if not, I'm going to try to see if you can. Yeah, we're all just viewing. Let me do this. Let me see if it's the same link. I think it should be. Maybe that's the wrong one. Thought I did anonymous, but let me see. Yeah, that's the anonymous link. Okay. All right, I'll give it another minute. We'll see if we have any more ideas that come through. We nearly have all the cards in, but if you're waiting in the meantime, you can kind of take a look at the cards that have been put in already. And if you see a couple that you would argue that one of them could be eliminated, go ahead and color them like we did in the first step. So we have create and develop network. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead and put them on colors on different ones. When do you actually get participants to share how might be our ideas? I think we're sharing our ideas right now, or at least we're just not discussing them per se. We're going to break for discussion in just a second. Create and develop a network, set up new cooperations, broaden network, have virtual meetings with potential clients. Yeah, I think this one, the virtual coffee, I'll put back in gray. But for those who are paying attention, and I'll kind of summon everyone over to where I'm at, there's 2 cards here: create and develop a network and set up new corporations and cooperations and broaden network. If you could, put your mouse over which of these 2 green cards you think should stay. If you think create and develop network should stay, put your mouse here. If it's set up new cooperations and broaden network, put your mouse over on this one. So this is towards the bottom of the 2. So we have G and a cat over here. We have a whole bunch of that bottom one. Okay, so let's go ahead and knock this one out. Since there seems to be a majority on that side, we'll just basically make it gray. Let's see, strategy planning for post-crisis, prepare for strategy for the after COVID-19. Okay, got another 2. I'll just basically put borders on them so that we know what we're looking at in the midst of things. This is going to be dark orange. So put your mouse over strategy planning for post-crisis if you think this one should stay, and prepare your strategy for the after COVID-19 one. Okay, so that one, the one at the top is the one that's going to be going back in the gray. And sorry, sir, I have to take you out for a second. Work on your strategy. Yeah, you're right. So yeah, everyone's already started over that one. Yeah, work on your strategy is kind of ambiguous, but I think the one on that everyone's pointing to is kind of more on point. So I'll take that one out. Apologies for someone who brought it in there. Just want to make sure we're getting we're staying focused on what we want to vote on. Let's see. Offer free demo sessions. Free demos, then sell the rest. Organize an online initiation workshop linked to a good cause. So this one I'm going to take out gray. I'm going to put it back into gray. These ones seem like they're close. So, and then offer a free GDS for a worthy client. Yeah, I don't know if a GDS is a demo or not. I'm going to take that one back gray. So it's between these 2. Offer free demo sessions and free demos, then sell the rest. Which one of those 2 in blue would you want to keep out of the 2? Sorry, so it looks like that one. Take this one down and bring this over here. I'll take this out gray. And then turn your business into digital, and you digitize your activity. Yeah, you guys got the idea. I'm not even having to explain it again. All right. And let's see, up here is create your brand through social media, create content on social media about concrete burning questions. I think it's different. One's about brand, the other one's about, yeah, I think they could probably be in the same space. I think they're all right. They're one on top of the other. All right, fine. All right, okay. You're overriding the facilitator in terms of like the thing. So okay, so and be helpful by offering some free services, and offer your services for free for a short period of time to support others. Which of those 2 do you think should stay? And by the way, if there are 2 that that are very close in terms of arrows, they're both going to stay, and it looks like both of those are going to stay. They're one more than the other, but I see plenty going to both. So thank you for pointing that out, but I think we're going to keep both this time around. You start a podcast and you produce a ton of content by starting your own video blog. Now that could be, yeah, facilitator's bias there, but I think to be honest with you, I'm going to leave podcast, because podcast in and of itself is another form of medium. I appreciate the kind of direction on that one, but I think we're going to keep both, just because the podcast is a little different than a video blog, but it's somewhat similar. So I'm going to take out, oh, can I? Is Mural allowing me to? No, my delete key stopped. Okay. Hang on a second. I'm going to just refresh by the way, if Mural ever starts kind of fitzing a bit where you just can't click on things or it doesn't seem to work, the best thing to do is just basically refresh your browser, and usually everything goes back to the way it should. I'm just getting rid of blank gray cards before we send to a vote, and it looks like we got one more thing to review. Let's see, stay in touch with your network and stay in touch with customers and listen. It depends if your network and customers are one and the same, but let's do one more round of kind of pointing with your cursor on which one should stay. So audience, if you could, let me know which of these is more relevant. That should be here. We got about 4 people over here. We got 3 people over here. Yeah, I think both of them are going to stay because there doesn't seem to be a good majority on both. All right, so we have our ideas based on the question that we posed. I'm going to do this really fast and kind of put them in a grid and do it that way so that things are a little bit better organized. Okay, so similar to what we did before, you're going to vote on your top 5. I'll go ahead and I'll start a voting session. You're going to want to vote on, and let me summon everyone just to make sure we're all looking in the same space. Check the chat really fast. Yeah, okay. So start a voting session. This is going to be about ideas. You want to vote for your top 5. This is what we want to carry forward to pair with the how might we question that we just voted on. So go ahead and vote on any particular cards. Please don't stack the votes if you can. Again, we're trying to address how might we keep a commercial activity during a lockdown period is the question that you're trying to answer with any of these cards. Pick your top 5 that you think would best address that question and what you would like to move forward to consider for outputs or outcomes. We're doing a play-by-play. We have a 4-way tie for first. The ladybug is out in front. And Gia is vying for supremacy. We'll see who's actually gets in it first. There's a 3-way tie now. 4-way tie. And it looks like there's going to be a mad rush at the end. 5-way tie, that one vote. It's always the last one's hard. And the lobster is first coming through. And then the ladybug follows after that. And in third place comes the rabbit. So everybody else follows suit. We'll just wait for the other votes to come through. This voting session looks like it's going fairly quickly, which is fine. It can go slow too. I'm not biased either way. As long as the selections, as long as you're happy with the selections that you've made, that's the important thing. At any point during our session, I would welcome all those of you who would want to network or like to network to basically copy and paste your LinkedIn profile over on the right-hand side at step 5. That'll be during times of either discussion or when you finish a activity. You can bolt all the way over to the right-hand side of the mural and put it there for reference. Looks like we have about 3 people left voting. And like I said in the last one, it's that one person that will put that deciding vote, the hippopotamus. Whatever the hippopotamus votes for is where we're going to be. Oh, change their mind. And there we go. Let's end the voting session, see where everything vetted out. And it looks like we have 3. We have a top 3. We have, you can learn a new skill that you can cook with post-corona and have virtual coffee meetings with potential clients and advertise remote workshops on a regular basis. Now, one thing to note is that it looks like there was like a couple of ones that had more than one vote, and we have another viable one here that says prepare for strategy for the after COVID-19, which is great because we can actually use a supplemental exercise to weed out to get a top 3 just to be sure. So I'm going to take these cards, copy them here, and I'm going to move down over in this section here. By the way, you'll notice that we didn't do affinity diagramming. That was purposeful, just because I wanted to try something a little bit new with this one. We had done it for the past 3. I wanted to see if skipping it would make any sort of difference. But we're going to go into this. So, and again, I'll bring this up in discussion. So we're going to do something called arrange by interest. Now we have a top 4, arguably, of what we just voted on, and I'll summon everyone to where I'm going to be going to. Now the way this works is we have an x-axis of interest, where on the there's a high point for high interest on your part and low for low interest on your part. So this is kind of a gauge for you personally. What happens is I take a digital card, which is have virtual meetings with potential clients. And you're going to use your mouse cursor similar to how you voted for cards that you wanted to keep in the past 2 exercises. And on this axis, you want to kind of use your mouse and kind of circle somewhere on this interest area where you have an interest. So for having virtual coffee meetings with clients, where on this particular line do you think your interest is? And between all the ones that are being selected here, it looks like we're right around there, even though Hippopotamus loves coffee meetings, which is fine. Perfectly fine. We'll go here. All right, so next one is advertise remote workshops on a regular basis. Now, what you want to do is consider where this falls between virtual coffee. Is it more popular or more is it more interesting for you or less interesting for you? Where does this fall on this x-axis here in terms of where you want to kind of, where this idea falls for you? And it looks like it's all over the place, but it's kind of, I almost think it's arguably in the same space, maybe a little bit ahead slightly. We'll do it that way. And for reference, let's do this just so that we have the question in mind. Give me 1 minute. Put that there. So we actually have the question right in front of us. So how may we keep a commercial activity during lockdown period? Prepare your strategy for the after COVID-19. Where do you think that falls in terms of interest? So, wow, that's all over. Now, there's a lot here. The hippopotamus isn't too thrilled. Lion's kind of It looks like everyone else is kind of way over here. Like Gia and the goat are way out there. So we're going to kind of put it right there. And then finally, you learn a new skill that you can work with post-corona. Where does this one fall in terms of your interest? It looks like it's just slightly behind there. So if I were to basically take 3 that would go away, would be these 3 right here. I'm going to put a border on those. I'll copy them, and I'm going to bring them over to this part in step 3. So before we start with step 3, I'd like to open this up to the panelists and see what they think so far of the process that we've been doing. So again, like I had mentioned, I actually skipped affinity diagramming for the purposes of kind of saving time, but just seeing how things would work out. But you tell me on the panelist side if you thought that was a wise thing to do, or if you were indifferent about it. I'll start off with, let's see, I'll take a look at who we've got. Mark, why don't you give me your thoughts on how things have been going so far and what you've been thinking about the process. Or you don't have to tell me. It's fine. I think you have to go off mic, or you have to go off mute, and then you can. No? Hang on. Let's see.
Okay, sorry. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. So far the process is really smooth. This time first time I participate, and I think it's really smooth. I really have to focus and concentrate. So that's really very positive. I do think that affinity prioritization is still good because it engages more the interest of the participants. So I would leave it in.
Okay. Susanna, what do you think? How have you been feeling about things been going so far? And what were your thoughts around just skipping the affinity diagramming exercise and going straight to comparison and voting?
I think it's going really smoothly. You're always an excellent facilitator, so I learn new tips and tricks every time. I think the affinity diagramming gives people a little more time to digest the content versus going straight to a voting. So I think you maybe don't need to use it every time. I know last fall we had done some lightning decision jams where it was like brainstorm, cluster, we did it over and over. It was like too much, but I think it slows it down enough to let you digest a little bit and build in time for conversation. So if you're a team that's really working together to choose what your collective business is going to do, you need to have that time to come together, even have some open conversation around what do we mean by this? What might that look like, so that people can add some more dimension than just what's on the sticky note.
So basically you can properly frame what's been kind of put out there by the audiences, by everybody. Yeah. And be able to kind of give some time to figure out where things kind of sit.
Yeah, I think sometimes we go too fast. Okay. And if it's a critical business decision that you're making, you've got to allow people time to think and discuss. So when we're doing these, it's not, it's really for the practice and to get our ideas out there, but we're not collectively, the 18 of us, going to make a decision around what to do.
Got it.
Together. So it has to do with how much the team needs to be working together versus we're just outsourcing and crowdsourcing information.
Okay.
So purpose goes back to the purpose.
Yep. Very good points. I agree with you. Thomas, what are your thoughts on what's been happening so far? And do you have any thoughts, you're pro or con on skipping that affinity diagramming exercise?
Yeah, so I think the good thing is it's a quite straightforward way of doing it, and I like the fact that how we get ideas down, because it's almost like a snowballing effect where we can build on ideas, and sometimes it will help you trigger new ideas. So I think that's what it's really, really good for. I kind of agree with Susanna, it might be a little bit too fast sometimes, because we're trying to get so many ideas down as possible, and we don't really discuss them well enough and think them through. But apart from that, I think what I really like about this is it still takes some ideas away that you can then either further discuss in a forum if you want to, but at least I think you have some input, you have some insight to us before. You might just sit then with your own ideas, and then how are you going to take that forward? How do you get people to buy into it? So I like the collaboration around this and get people involved. But in terms of the affinity, yeah, I think maybe that's a good exercise to do as well.
Cool. Okay. Thank you all for that feedback. That's good to know. So I apologize if I skipped it, but it was in the mode of experimentation. This is the last session that I'll be doing before the GVDS. So I just wanted to see if it changed the pace as well as the perspective. So thank you for that feedback. We'll jump back into it with step 3. And as you can tell, I've been kind of prepping this particular one. So again, the summary's up here for you to view. How might we keep a commercial activity during the lockdown period? These are the top 3 ideas that we've felt out of everything that was submitted were good directions to go in. Now what we're going to do is, if we project out in the future, like a long-term goal kind of thinking, if we were to think of the outcomes that would be awesome for this particular idea, what would those look like? Now, anyone can do this. It's basically filling out 12 different possibilities. Just double click on a card and put in, from your perspective, if we advertise for remote workshops on a regular basis, if we were to project towards the end and things were like a home run, highly successful, what does that look like from your perspective? Same thing with you learn a new skill that you can work with post-corona. Again, put that in there from your perspective. We'll give about 3 minutes for this one, and we'll see what we come up with. And again, there is no right answer to this. This is just to basically get perspective from everyone's point of view on what an ideal outcome would be for each idea. And we'll do a short voting session really fast after doing some comparisons and move that into the next step. One thing to note also for the attendees that are kind of hanging out and participating, towards the end, we'll offer to have you come over to the panelist side to explain your point of view, give your feedback on what you experienced. So it's not necessarily just typing in chat. I'll open it up to more people that want to have their voice heard around what they experienced and to get perspective. That was a feedback item from the last session around being able to have access at the end to give perspective. So we're gonna make it actionable. We have about 30 seconds left. Looks like we're almost done putting in outcomes. We have a few more that are open just in case people want to put something in there. You can also get really out there. Like, again, we can go bold and just completely go in a direction that you think would be next to near impossible, but it would still be kind of fun to project out in the future, like a super North Star. Not that we're going to break the space-time continuum, but something pretty interesting. Okay, so if you are still working on a digital card, go ahead and wrap that up. We'll do a quick comparison of the cards to see if there are any duplicates in a row, just not between rows, but in a particular row where there are two cards that could arguably be, one of them could be removed because there's a duplicate, but just only in a row. Normally, and for reference, in this exercise, it's rare to have that happen. Maybe there's one or two, but usually there's no more than that. So I'll give a minute to kind of look over the different answers that people gave. I'll go ahead and eliminate two of the cards here. And if you are the person that is on the skills of the future, what are they and how to upskill? If you could, just click anywhere off to the right and, well, it disappeared completely. That was weird. Yeah, just go ahead and click anywhere off the card, and that should bring it there. It's a glitch. There we go. Cool. All right, so let's get to voting. Again, you're only going to vote on the gray cards, not on the colored cards on the left, nor the Pokemon characters. You want to leave them be. You want to vote on the gray cards that you see here. For some reason, this particular card, it's still being hit by the walrus, is fading in and out, but we're going to see if that will come through before I start the vote. So what you're going to be doing is everyone's going to get 3 votes. You want to put 1 vote on 1 outcome in a row. So don't stack your votes on 1 particular row. Just make sure that you vote on 1 of the cards in each row. So if you're looking at the advertised remote workshops on a regular basis, you're going to put 1 vote on 1 of the 12 that are here. You don't want to put those down in other places. If you are considering you learn a new skill that you can work with past Corona, vote on 1 of the 10 cards that are here. And that's the way that'll work. So everyone will get 3 votes. And put 1 vote for each row for an outcome that you would love to see happen. And again, there is no right or wrong answer. Nobody will be able to see your vote. If you decide to change your mind, you can go ahead and shift click and take your vote off and put it on some other card. But let's see how this works. 1 vote per row for the outcome that you'd like to see. And the hippopotamus wasted no time and said, bam, 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 along with the cat. Usually these are fairly quick. And the rabbit, true to his form, or her form, is about to cross the finish line as well. But the hippo beat him out. We have 2 hippopotamuses in 2nd and 3rd. We're about halfway through our votes. I think we're just waiting for a lobster, a giraffe, and 2 lobsters and a giraffe walked into a bar, which would be an interesting riddle or joke. And nearly there. Giraffes still make up their mind. It's funny, you read one card and you're like, oh, I like this one better. And there we go. Right, let's end the voting session, see where all these votes ended up. And we're going to use this as a heat map, not necessarily the top. So looks like for advertised remote workshops on a regular basis, establish yourself as a thought leader and your content area is the one that seemed to come up first. On this side, we have, you learn a new skill that you can work with post-corona. You can identify problems and listen to people discover new fields that might be very interesting is one that was here. Then down here, we have an interesting dynamic. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different cards that are I'll have 2 votes. There's nothing with 3s. So, you know what that's time for. I'm going to go ahead and grab the arrange by interest section down here. I'm going to duplicate that. And I'm going to bring it over here. I think I'm going to also do this. And just give me 1 second. I'm going to arrange for a little bit of a session.
Robert, I noticed that some of those are things to do and some of them are outcomes. So I wonder if there's any clarification that we might do on those.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Let's kind of look them over and put an
Okay.
emphasis on outcomes more than actions. How about that? Let's see if that actually kind of brings that into focus. So I will kind of come down here and I'll summon everyone to where I'm at. So we'll do this really fast. The question was, how might we keep a commercial activity during the lockdown period? The idea was to prepare your strategy for the after COVID-19 scenario. Each of these 5 are ones that you're going to be considering on the interest matrix, but look at them from the perspective of outcomes rather than actions. So let's give this a try. An outcome is to explore customer behavior during the crisis period to align your business to the future. Now, if this is something that you think is an outcome and it's interesting to you, then go ahead and put it somewhere on the interest axis. If you think it's something that's more of an action item, then put it probably lower on the interest axis, just so if you don't think it's really like future thinking. So it kind of seems like it fits around here with a little bit of people over there. So I'll put it just slightly below the median right here, or the middle part. Train customers using video and mural. This where do you think this is on interest in terms of, for you personally, in terms of preparing your strategy for the after COVID-19? Where do you think this falls? And look at it also from where it goes between explore customer behavior and during crisis. So right around there, select that one right there. Prepare changes to future-proof business model now to hit the ground running later, probably. I think that'd be there. Where does this sit on the interest axis? Looks like it's just right around here as a cluster. Okay. Be clear to yourself on what value and benefits you offer to the world. Where does this sit? And in relation to these other cards, where do you think this goes? So we have the cat thinks highly of it. We have the sea lion, giraffe, a lobster, and a rhino, and a rabbit kind of think it's down here. So it looks like it's kind of sitting somewhere over here, I would say. Then finally, a business that is more resilient to future upheavals of any sort. Where does this fall in terms of where this fits in terms of like this card matrix here? And wow, it looks like, well, we got 3 over here. 2, 1. Okay, so it's kind of close. In a way, these almost seem like they're very, very similar, right? In terms of their wording. Prepare changes to future-proof your business and a business that is more resilient to future upheavals. Let's do a quick one because these I would argue these are super close. Put your mouse cursor over the one that you would like to move forward with. Put your mouse cursor over a business that is more resilient to future upheavals if you want that, or prepare changes to future-proof your business for that one. So we've got 2 up here. We got 4 down here. Yep, I'm thinking we're going to keep the bottom one. So let's go with this one. Right. So we'll go back up to the overall future-proof. There you go. I think it's this one. Okay. While I'm preparing the next step, if you could, I'm going to focus everyone over here on circles of interest. Let me go ahead and summon here. Go ahead and put your name going vertical in terms of like a dot. So if your name is Robert, you're going to put Robert here and then put Robert here. Go ahead and populate those dots with your name. And I'll basically do some maintenance and put some of the voted cards over on the right-hand side so we can work on this exercise. And my consultant has come. Hello, you going to do your teeth? Okay. But if you turn it on, you got to walk away because there will be too much noise for everybody. Okay. And give me 30 seconds to transfer everything over and we should be good to go. By the way, I learned that you should never say we're doing good on time because that's a opening for your session to basically lose time really fast. I don't know why. It's like the some sort of weird dynamic that happens. So I'm not going to mention time. Right. So as you're putting in your names down here, the way this exercise works is that we're going to be ranking these ideas and outcomes based on interest and impact. Now, one thing I did in the past that I'm not doing now is that this one, it's good to note, has a lot of supplemental outcomes. Usually that's a good heat map to indicate that this idea may have a lot of interest to the group just as a facilitator. So this is like, from my point of view, if I see this kind of voting pattern happen in outcomes, there's a good chance that there's more interest in where this could go. But again, you have to see how things kind of vet out in terms of this exercise. The way this works is you're going to look at the top and look at the idea and outcome cluster. So for blue, advertise remote workshops on a regular basis, and the outcome is to establish yourself as a thought leader in your content area. You're going to take the bubble that has your name on it. I'm going to use a blank one here because nobody used this one. You're going to put it down in the impact interest matrix here, start in the middle, and then first you're going to go, okay, what kind of impact do I think this is going to have? So in terms of like an outcome, I think it's going to be fairly good. I'm a big believer in DTC. Now, in terms of interest for me, it's going to go all the way over here because I subscribe to it highly. This is what I love to do. So if this is something that you feel also is a very high interest, then this is where it would go. And that's how you use the XY axis here. If something falls into the forget about it, don't worry. It's not, you're not going to hurt anybody's feelings. That's just to indicate how this is going to kind of work. So again, take your blue dot, take the dot for each particular idea. So the blue dots are for the idea outcome in blue. The tan ones are for the idea outcome in tan up here, and green is the same thing. Go ahead and look at those and then place your dot in this matrix where both your interest and the type of impact you think this idea outcome would have. And we'll give a few moments for people to do that, and we'll see how everything vets out. You good? Okay. I've already put Ms. Douglas's like feedback on your work from yesterday up there, so you're all set with that. Okay. This is interesting. This is actually the first time out of the 4 sessions that a majority of dots for all 3 ideas have populated that upper right-hand quadrant. Granted that there's going to be some scattering across the entire matrix. It's really interesting to see. So we'll have a few more people finish up. Looks like almost all the dots are placed. Okay. So if like I had mentioned before, it looks like the green, which was the prepare your strategy for the after COVID-19 and future-proof your business, or prepare changes to future-proof your business, seemed to edge out in terms of like both interest and impact. On I think a close second, arguably, from an interest standpoint, could be the gold idea, which was to identify problems or to learn a new skill that you can work with post-corona. And then advertise remote workshops arguably has a slightly bigger impact than gold, but I think they're about the same. We'll start a brief discussion on this. And again, if you have been viewing this as an observer in Zoom and would like to come on the panelist side, give your point of view on this exercise, as well as your thoughts around where things ended up on this matrix, go ahead and raise your hand and I'll bring you over in time. But I'll start and I'll go through the flip side of this and start with Thomas this time. So Thomas, when I look at this kind of assembly of different votes here, I noticed that for your green one, you're kind of squarely there. I'm trying to see where your other votes panned out, but it looks like you weren't too enthusiastic about the blue idea, which was the advertise remote workshops on a regular basis. But gold seemed to be the one that kind of led for, or sorry, green was the one that kind of led for you. Can you kind of explain your thinking and how you kind of made that determination?
Yeah, I can do. I think the blue one, because I think you find that extremely competitive at the moment. Everybody's going that direction. A lot of people are focused. So how are you going to make that difference? I think the green one is, because if you look at companies today, there's a lot of cost cutting as opposed to, how do we prepare for the future? How do we make changes so we fit for purpose once the crisis is over? So I think that's probably where I felt that's where you could make the biggest difference at the moment.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you for that. Mark, you're also somebody that was in the same place as Thomas on the green side. Looking for your other votes, and it looks like the gold one was kind of like it wasn't much of an interest for you, but it was more of you felt there was more of an impact, and same with blue. So green was also a leader for you, and that was the idea around preparing a strategy for the after COVID-19 world. So if you could you give your perspective as well?
Yeah, I think prepare changes to future-proof business model actually is the outcome, and the other ones can help you with preparing this business model. When you identify problems and listen to people, then you can, with that information, you can start thinking of your new business model. Establishing yourself as a thought leader. I don't consider myself as someone that important, so that's why I don't have much impact on that, I think. But preparing your business model for the future, that is something that is very important to me right now, because my consultancy with Toyota was postponed. My trainings and workshops are canceled, so I'm running on fuse now. So that means that I really have to rethink my business model for after the crisis, meaning going mixed with face-to-face and online. That's why my interest is more for green than the rest.
Yeah, and I know there are a lot of people that are in the position too, where they're starting to feel the pinch around like the way this has contracted the economy globally and in different markets. So, yep.
And I think if we don't train our customers or whatever where we are with these new skills, we will make the same error as before. So that's why I think, in order to be able to anticipate this change in business model, that we also have to train and support and guide the customers and other companies out there.
Agree. Right. Thank you for that, Mark. Susanna, what are your thoughts on this?
I think it's probably pretty similar. I couldn't hear all of Thomas's, but I mean, I think that the green one is around strategy. So that's needs to, when you have time, and it's kind of like when we set this up, we have time, or when we have time, those are some of the things that get behind. So if you're always thinking of your strategy, that's going to have the biggest long-term impact. So there's kind of a short and long-term aspect to this, whereas learning new skills gives you a longer-term benefit. And then, unknown impact, right? Depends what skills you learn. And for me, having remote workshops and letting people know what your capabilities are is something that is both important and could have an impact in terms of just letting people know that there are other possibilities out there. Those of us who've been doing some of this for a little while, it's starting to become like, well, doesn't everybody do this? Everybody must know about this. And then I just keep coming across people who are still learning how to use Zoom. So, it's a big world out there. And, you want to be, for everybody, you always want to be positioned to meet what your customers need, what your potential customers need. So identifying what those things are and having the skills in place to do that, and letting people know what your skills are, where they can find a match, is what could help, I think.
Yeah, very well said. Lauren, I brought you over. I tried to promote you to a panelist, but it wouldn't, Zoom's will not kind of let me do that. But I do have you on the mic. Why don't you give your perspective on kind of how your votes vetted out and what your thoughts are?
Yeah, do you hear me? I hope you hear me.
I can hear you just fine.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. No, I think it's really interesting diagram because I think we can see that we are all set in a crisis that we didn't think about, and the diagram means to me that we are all changing thing, and I think it's really the point today. It's not to continue to just keep on instead of the crisis. We need to change many things, and for me it is not about establishing yourself as a tough leader or something like that. It is really more how to identify the problem we have, why we have it, and how we can fix it for the future, for our children on earth. And it's more about the planet, and I think we should facilitate the reflection on all of this and prepare the change together.
Cool. Very well said. Thank you for that, Lauren. So again, I would welcome anybody who's who's on the attendee side of things, if they want to speak up about what they're seeing here or their point of view, to raise their hand, and I'll bring them on. In the meantime, while we're waiting for that, one thing I like to do at the end of the session, as a way of kind of, I guess it's promotion, but at the same time, it's to kind of engage interest. For the dots that have been put on this matrix here, for your name, what I'd like to do is, in Mural, you can basically put a border around a particular dot that you have, just for aesthetics. But what I'd like to do is, if there is a particular idea and outcome related to this How Might We that you would like to see taken in consideration for a design sprint, for the Global Virtual Design Sprint, or some sort of process, because right now we're vetting out challenges all this week and part of next week. All you have to do, in terms of either showing intent or showing that, yes, I'd like to see a greater audience look at this and see where it could go, you just have to basically choose the color that corresponds to the idea outcome, and have your particular dot, whether it's Susanna or Gia or Wayne, whatever it is, select that dot and basically border it, put a border on it. And then I'll know to follow up with you after the session is done, and ask for what you'd like to do. If you'd like to take it to be a separate process that exists outside the GVDS, if you want to have it considered as a challenge inside the GVDS, which is probably what's going to happen, let me know. This border isn't saying that you are going to participate. This is just saying that you want to keep informed after the session on where this potentially could go. So you can do one idea, you could do 2 or 3. It's totally up to you. But this is just a way for me to make sure that I follow up with you and let you know what the status is of any particular idea. Okay. Is there anybody else on the attendee side that would like to come on and give their point of view? If not, I can close it out somewhat early, probably because we didn't do affinity diagramming, but I can leave it also open-ended for anybody on the panelist side who wants to also submit other perspectives. So I don't see anything else going up on the attendee side. Panelists, do you have any other thoughts or observations you'd like to make about what we did here today? Boy, this is the easiest session that I've done out of the four. That's great. I mean, I'm not saying that being silent is a bad thing. I'm just saying, all right, we're good to go. And so Edward asked, what is the GVDS?
Robert.
What's that?
Yeah, I would like to say that this is one of the first smoothest online workshops that I've experienced in 1 month, and I've done every day 2 webinars or online workshops, and this is by far the most smoothest ones. And I was in flow all the time, and that was the very first time. And I honestly think that's thanks to you, because you're a really great online facilitator. You're an excellent, your voice is excellent for this. It's just amazing. And also because the people also know how to use Mural already, and quite well. And that all together makes this really, for me, a really nice experience. And this is the very first.
Well, thank you. That's That's heavy compliment, but I'll take it. Thank you. That's wonderful to hear. Just do let me know when I start slipping up, because when I have less sleep, I tend to ramble, and I've been holding back like really. After 4 tries, I've been trying to make it so that I stay on point.
You have a lot of credit, Robert.
Oh, thank you for that. Edward asks what the GVDS was, because it sounds like I'm not speaking well. But if I'm going to turn everybody's attention to step 5 really fast. So again, like I mentioned before, if you could put your LinkedIn profile here. Sometimes it renders properly in LinkedIn, sometimes it does not. But a copy and paste of a URL that is your profile there is a good way of networking with other people that went through this session, so you can check out their profiles if you see some similarities in terms of their activities or what they're interested in. Do reach out, just let them know you're a part of the session, and then you can hopefully kick it off from there. 2 and 3 are basically involving the Global Virtual Design Sprint, which is more to the question. The sprint brief is just to basically create a challenge that participants that are already in the event can consider. It's the blueprint we're using to basically start the conversation around things. So what we did today is going to be manifested in a sprint brief, and that'll be put in probably either today or tomorrow for participant consideration. Now, if you're interested in signing up for this thing, all 3 of these particular paths are all in type form. Each one of them has a section where if you're not sure what the Global Virtual Design Sprint is, it'll explain it to you. If you don't want to go through a form to figure that out, let me go ahead and put in something that explains it. There is this website that thankfully I did before the madness happened. And this is all about the Global Virtual Design Sprint here. If you double click on this, this will basically go and explain everything related to the activities, the time commitment, the pricing, the whole shot. And I'll caveat this by saying, this is the 4th one we've done. The whole reason why I'm organizing this and putting it together is that I want to showcase practitioners and professionals for who they are and what they do, and to hopefully drive people to become better versions of themselves through practice, by learning by doing. That's the whole point of doing this, is that it's not necessarily for fame and glory, because I'm not of that breed. I'm more trying to make a difference and to help people out with where they are in their professional career, because I think that makes all the difference in terms of providing for your family, for doing what you love to do in your life, basically to make your professional outlook that much more better for yourself. That's where at least my heart and my intent is. So that's what the Global Virtual Design Sprint is all about. Plus, you get to meet a lot of interesting people. If you can't tell from the design I put there, that's just basically the 3rd one, where you had all these different Zoom sessions that happened back in November. If you have any questions about the event, you can reach out to me direct on LinkedIn. In fact, while I'm thinking about it, I'll put the profile up so that you'll have it as part of the kind of the collection that's already being assembled over there. And probably it won't render properly. It'll just be a gray box. Maybe. Yep. That's what usually happens with me. So I'll put that down below after you go through other folks. And that's pretty much it for the session. What I'll do is, you have access to the mural now. If you want this as a download for your own organization or for your situation, let me know and I'll provide that. In fact, I'll make sure that's part of the post like kind of summary that I usually do on LinkedIn and other places after we're done. And feel free to leave feedback for me either on comments on Mural or write to me direct on LinkedIn. But as is tradition, I'm going to stop sharing my screen at this point. And for the panelists that are over here on this side, and Lauren, I'm going to try one more time to get you on the panelist side. You don't need to, but what we usually do is we do kind of like a group screenshot of everyone to basically commemorate what we've just done. So as we normally do is you just find an interesting object around you that you want to put in front of the camera. Hey, there's Lauren. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, how are you?
I mean, I could do, it
I'm
usually takes
fine.
about 30 seconds, but what I'll do is,
Yeah, no problem.
this fell on the floor. It's been sitting on the thing. So this is like I'm going to take my virtual screen off because this does not work. Hang on. Let's get rid of that. There we go. Now I'm back. I'm off the road. I'm actually there. Okay. So put up what you'd like to showcase for everybody. And hopefully I can't even put the whole picture in that. I'll just do it on the side. Ready? Like I'm peeking out. All right, on the count of 3. 1, 2. Oh, wait. Hold on. I gotta maximize this thing. All right. And hang on. The keys right. All right. Wait. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Fantastic. Oy. All right. Everyone, enjoy your weekend. Thank you very much for the session. I'll follow up a little bit later on, but it was wonderful getting your perspectives, and hopefully it was good use of your time. So take care. Wash your hands.
Thank you very much,
Keep your
Robert.
distance.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Robert. Thanks,
Be kind to
everybody.
one another,
Stay
okay?
healthy and be safe.
Take care. Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.